let's begin. The history of the Roman Empire covers the history of ancient Rome, from the fall of the Roman Republic in 27 BC until the abdication of Romulus Augustus in AD 476 in the West, and the fall of Constantinople in AD 1453. Ancient Rome became a territorial empire lost in the Republic. It was then ruled by Roman emperors, beginning with Augustus, becoming the Roman Empire following the death of the last Republican dictator, the first emperor's adopted father, Julius Caesar. Rome had begun expanding shortly after the founding of the Roman Republic in the 6th century BC, though it did not expand outside of the Italian peninsula until the 3rd century BC. Civil war engulfed the Roman state in the mid-1st century BC, first between Julius Caesar and Pompey, and finally between Octavian and Mark Antony. The emperor was defeated at the Battle of Actium in 31 BC. In 27 BC, the Senate made Octavian Imperator, also known as Commander, thus beginning the Principate. The first people of Roman imperial history, usually dated from 27 BC, AD 284. They later awarded him the name Augustus, the Venerated. Subsequent emperors all took this name as the imperial title Augustus. The success of Augustus in establishing principles of dynastic succession was limited by his outliving a number of talented potential heirs. The Julio-Claudian dynasty lasted for 4 more emperors: Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, and Nero, before it yielded in AD 69 to the strife-torn years of the 4 emperors, in which Vespasian emerged as a victor. Vespasian became the founder of the Greek Flavian dynasty, to be followed by the Nerva-Antonine dynasty, which produced the 5 good emperors: Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antonius, Pius, and the philosophically inclined Marcus Aurelius. In the view of the Greek historian Leo Cassius, contemporary observer, the ascension of the Emperor Commodus in AD 180 marked the descent from a kingdom of gold to one of brass and iron. A famous column which has led some historians, notably Edward Gibbon, to take Commodus's reign as the beginning of the decline of the Roman Empire. In 212, during the reign of Caracalla, Roman citizenship was granted to all full-born inhabitants of the empire. Despite this gesture of universality, the Silurian dynasty was tumultuous. An emperor's reign was ended routinely by his murder or execution, and following its collapse, the Roman Empire was engulfed by the crisis of the 3rd century, a period of invasions, civil strife, economic disorder, and epidemic disease. In defining historical epochs, the crisis is typically viewed as marking the start of the later Roman Empire, and also the transition from classical antiquity to late antiquity. In the reign of Philip the Arab, Rome celebrated the 1000th anniversary of her founding by Romulus and Remus. With the secular days, Diocletian restored stability to the empire, modifying the role of Principes and becoming the first emperor to be addressed by Roman citizens as domain, master, or lord, or referred to as Dominus Noster, our lord. Diocletian's reign also brought the empire's most concerted efforts against the perceived threat of Christianity, the Great Persecution, the state of absolute monarchy that began with Diocletian, endured into the monarchy that began with Diocletian, endured into the fall of the Western Roman Empire in 1453. Diocletian divided the empire into 4 regions, each ruled by an emperor. Confident that he fixed the disorders plaguing Rome, he abdicated along with his co-Augustus, and the Tetrarchy eventually collapsed in the civil wars of the Tetrarchy. Order was eventually restored by the victories of Constantine, who became the first emperor to convert to Christianity, and who founded Constantinople as a new capital of the empire, after defeating his co-emperor, Licinius. The reign of Julian, who under the influence of his advisor Mardonius, attempted to restore classical Roman and Hellenistic religion, only briefly interrupted the succession of Christian emperors of the Constantinian dynasty. During the decades of the Valentinian and Byzantine dynasties, the established practice of multiple emperors was continued. Theodosius I, the last emperor to rule both the Eastern Empire and the whole Western Empire, died in AD 395 after making Christianity the official religion of the empire. The Western Roman Empire began to disintegrate in the early 5th century as the Germanic migrations and invasions of the migration period overwhelmed the capacity of the empire to assimilate the immigrants and fight off the invaders. The most common chronologies placed the end of the Western Roman Empire in 476, when Romulus Augustulus was forced to abdicate to the Germanic Odacer. By placing himself under the rule of the Eastern Emperor Zeno, rather than naming himself or a puppet ruler as emperor, as the other Germanic chiefs had done, Odacer ended the separate Roman government of the Western Empire. The Eastern Empire exercised diminishing control over the West over the course of the next century. The empire in the East, known today as the Byzantine Empire, referred to in its time as the Roman Empire, or by various other names, ended in 1453 with the death of Constantine. I don't know my Roman numerals. Is that 11? And the fall of Constantinople to the Ottoman Turks. Octavian, the grandnephew and adopted son of Julius Caesar, had made himself a central military figure during the chaotic period following Caesar's assassination. In 43 BC, at the age of 20, he became one of the 3 members of the Second Triumvirate. The political alliance of Marcus Lepidus and Mark Antony. Octavian and Antony defeated the last of Caesar's assassins in 42 BC at the Battle of Philippi. Although after this point, tensions began to rise between the two. The triumvirate ended in 32 BC, torn apart by the competing ambitions of its members. Lepidus was forced to exile, and Antony, who had allied himself with his lover, Queen Cleopatra of Egypt, committed suicide and Theodosius following his defeat at the Battle of Philippi. Following the fate of Octavian, Octavian subsequently annexed Egypt to the empire. Now sole ruler of Rome, Octavian began a full-scale reformation of military, fiscal, and political matters. The Senate granted him power over appointing its membership in several successive consulships, allowing him to operate within the existing constitutional machinery, and thus reject titles that Romans associated with monarchy, such as Rex, aka King. The dictatorship and military office in the early republic, typically lasting only for 6 months when the companion Caesar had been resurrected first by Sulla in the late 80s BC, and then by Julius Caesar in the mid-40s. The title dictator was never used again. As the adopted heir of Julius Caesar, Octavian had taken Caesar as a component of his name and handed down the name of his heirs of the Julio-Claudian dynasty. With Vespasian, one of the first emperors outside the dynasty, Caesar evolved from the family name to the imperial title Caesar. Augustus created his novel, an historically unique position by consolidating the constitutional powers of several republican offices. He renounced his consulship in 23 BC, but retained his consular imperium, leading to a second compromise between Augustus and the Senate, known as the Second Settlement. Augustus was granted the authority of a tribune, or the title, which allowed him to call together the Senate and people at will, and lay business before it. Veto the actions of either the Assembly or the Senate, preside over elections, and gave him the right to speak first at a meeting. Also included in Augustus' tribunation authority were powers usually reserved for the Roman censors. These included the right to supervise public morals and scrutinize laws to ensure they were in the public interest, as well as the ability to hold a census and determine the membership of the Senate. No tribune of Rome had ever had these powers, and there was no precedent within the Roman system for consolidating the powers of a tribune and the censor into a single position. Nor was Augustus ever elected to the office of censor. Whether censoral powers were granted to Augustus as part of his tribunation authority, or he simply assumed those is a matter of debate. In addition to those powers, Augustus was granted civil imperium within the city of Rome itself. All armed forces in the city, firmly under the control of the prefects, were now under the sole authority of Augustus. Additionally, Augustus was granted imperium proconsulare meius, consular command, the right to interfere in any province and override the decisions of any government. With this, Augustus was the only individual who could grant the triumph to a successful general, as he was ostensibly the leader of the entire Roman army. The Senate reclassified the provinces at the frontiers as imperial provinces and gave control of those to Augustus. The peaceful provinces were reclassified as senatorial provinces, governed as they had been during the Republic by members of the Senate sent out annually by the central government. Senators were prohibited from so much as visiting Roman Egypt, given its great wealth and history as a base of power for opposition to the new emperor. Taxes from the imperial provinces went to the fiscus, the fund administered by persons chosen by and answered to Augustus. The revenue from senatorial provinces continued to be sent to the state treasury, under the supervision of the Senate. The Roman legions, which had reached an unprecedented figure in number because the civil wars were reduced to 20. Several legions, particularly those with members of doubtful loyalties, were simply disbanded. Other legions were united, the front taken by the Gemina. Augustus also created 9 special cohorts to maintain peace in Italy, with 3, the Praetorian Guard, kept in Rome. Control of the fiscus enabled Augustus to ensure the loyalty of the legions duly paid. Augustus completed the quest of Hispania, while subordinate generals expanded Roman possessions in Africa and Asia Minor. Augustus' final task was to ensure the overall succession of his powers. Steps on Tiberius had conquered Pannonia, Dalmatia, Asia, and temporarily Germania for the empire, and was thus a part candidate. In 6 BC, Augustus passed some of his powers to his stepson, and soon after he recognized Tiberius as his heir. In AD 13, a law was passed which extended Augustus's powers over to the provinces of Tiberius, so that Tiberius's legal powers were equivalent to, and not independent from, those of Augustus. Attempting to secure the borders of the empire upon the rivers Danube and Illyria, Augustus ordered the invasions of Illyria, Aegea, and Pannonia, south of Danube, and Germania, west of it. The first momentous plan, then disaster struck. The Illyrian tribes revolted and had to be crushed, and 3 full legions under the command of Publius Varus were ambushed and destroyed at the Battle of the Tetrabur Forest in AD 9 and Germanic troops led by the Romans. Being cautious, Augustus secured all territories west of the Rhine and contented himself with retaliatory bands. The river's Rhine and Danube became the permanent borders of the Roman Empire in the north. In 14, Augustus died aged 75, having ruled the empire for 40 years, and he was succeeded as emperor by Tiberius. Augustus had 3 grandsons by his daughter, Julia the Elder, Gaius Caesar, Lucius Caesar, and Agrippa the throne of Rome to succeed him, and therefore was succeeded by his stepson Tiberius. Tiberius was the son of Livia, the third wife of Augustus by her first marriage to Tiberius Nero. Augustus was a scion, whatever that means, of the gens Julia, one of the most ancient patrician clans of Rome. While Tiberius was a scion of the gens Claudia, only slightly less ancient than the Julians, their co-heir successors were all descended both from the gens Claudia, from Tiberius's birth Claudius Drusus, and from gens Julia, living through Julia the Elder, Augustus's daughter from his first marriage, and through Augustus's sister Octavian Maya. The story is thus reported by Garrison as the Julia-Claudian dynasty. The early years of Tiberius' reign were relatively peaceful. Tiberius secured the overall power of Rome and enriched his treasury. However, his rule soon became characterized by paranoia. He began a series of treason trials and executions, which continued until his death in 37. He left power in the hands of the commander of the guard, Lucius Aelius Sejuanius. Tiberius himself retired to live in his villa on the island of Capri in 26, leaving his administration